Chapter 4152 Water Repellent Bead. At this moment, Feng Pia Piao tapped the small hammer in her hand. After everyone had quieted down, she said, "Everyone, I'm sure you all know how precious this water repellent bead is. There's only one of it in this world. If you miss it, you won't have another chance. Alright, let's get to the main topic. The starting bid for the water repellent bead is 100 million high-grade spirit stones. Each increment is no less than 5 million. Let's start the bidding now." Although everyone coveted the water repellent bead, when they heard the price, many people immediately gave up on the idea. What a joke, even if they were sold, it wouldn't be worth 100 million. Even so, there were still many people who were determined to obtain the water repellent bead, and the price continued to rise. Island Master Chi clenched his fists and kept increasing the price. No matter what, he had to obtain the water repellent bead. Finally, after he shouted out 180 million, no one raised the price anymore. Island Master Chi stood up excitedly. The water repellent bead was going to belong to him. However, a maid's voice sounded with a slight tremble. "In private room number 9, guest number 19 has bid 200 million upper-grade spirit stones." Everyone immediately exploded. "Io, that sucker has bid again. This time, he's even more ruthless, raising the price by 20 million. Poverty limits our imagination. We don't understand the world of the rich. I reckon this water repellent bead belongs to that guest number 19. After all, that person is obviously a fool with a lot of money." At this moment, Feng Pia Piao raised the small hammer. 200 million high-grade spirit stones going once. Island Master Chi became anxious upon seeing this. He didn't have the time to let the maid pass on the message and shouted himself, "Wait! 205 million. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, maid number 9 said, "Private room number 9, guest number 19 bids 225 million. Boom! The crowd was once again in a discussion. They did not know how to describe guest number 19. This guy was too rich. Feng Pia Piao once again raised the small hammer. 225 million going once. Island Master Chi could not help but feel a little angry. Why did Feng Pia Piao not raise the hammer after he made the bid? And why did she raise the hammer on the 19th? Was she looking down on him? He immediately said coldly, 230 million. This time, there was no movement from private room number 9 for a long time. Feng Pia Piao was a little confused, but it was not good for her to remain silent. She immediately picked up the small hammer. 230 million going once. Maid number 9's trembling voice sounded even louder, 330 million. Private room number 9, guest number 19 bids 300 million. This was also the reason why maid number 9 did not say anything at the first moment. She was almost scared silly when she saw Yun Chuzhou stretching out 3 white and tender fingers. For a moment, she did not react. It was only after the steward coughed that she finally reacted. Damn it, was this guest number 19 crazy? 300 million. Adding 70 million all of a sudden, that customer number 83 would probably give up, right? Island Master Chi was also shocked by the price of 300 million, and he was stunned on the spot. At this moment, someone started to jeer, "That customer number 83, don't insist. It's obvious that you don't have as much money as that customer number 19. Why do you have to humiliate yourself? That's right. Look at how customer number 19 suddenly bid for 300 million. What do you have to compete with him? Forget about giving up. There's no need to show off." Island Master Chi almost fainted from anger. As an island master, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? He was definitely going to take this water-repellent bead. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and said, 350 million. An old woman's voice came from the 9th private room. However, there was a hint of a young girl's coquettishness in her tone. "Idiot, I'll give it to you." Chapter 4153, on the other hand, earned 5 million. The scene was dead silent, and then there was a loud explosion. "Oh my God, the one who spoke just now was customer number 19, right? Why do I hear that she was toying with customer number 83? Do you even need to guess? This is pure toying. This water-repellent bead was originally only worth 200 million at most. Now that customer number 83 has bid 350 million, isn't it all because that customer number 19 raised the price? This number 19 is really mean. If you're teasing someone, then just wait quietly. But she just had to say it out. Isn't this making number 83 so angry that he's going to vomit blood? Island Master Chi's face was livid at this moment. He felt that his chest was so heavy that he couldn't breathe. If not for his profound cultivation, he might have really vomited blood after being so angry. Xiao Yu was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. Master, don't be angry. I'll go and see what that number 19 is. She actually dared to provoke our Flying Flower Island. I'll definitely tear her into pieces. As Xiao Yu spoke, she was about to walk out, but as soon as she opened the door, she discovered that there were many ghost guards standing at the door. A person who looked like a steward was holding a tray with a brocade box on it. Guest, this is the water-repellent bead that you took. Please honor the contract. The steward spoke very politely, but he blocked Xiao Yu's path. Although Island Master Chi was furious, as the master of an island, he had experienced countless storms and waves. He quickly calmed his emotions and gave Xiao Yu a warning glance, then passed the 350 million high-grade spirit stones to the steward. He took the brocade box from the steward's hand. No matter what, the water-repellent bead was finally in his hands. Although it was a little expensive, it was worth it since there was only one of it in the world. Of course, if he knew that He Xinjiu had a pile of water-repellent beads in her storage ring, and it was even better than his, he would probably be so angry that he would vomit blood. After the steward received the spirit stones, he quickly went to private room number 9. Yun Chujiu asked with a smile, "Did you get the money?" Did number 83 pretend to be calm even though he was so angry that he was about to vomit blood? The corner of the steward's mouth twitched. It was not good for him to gloat so openly, was it? However, he still replied respectfully, "Our guest is as smart as you said. According to our agreement, we will split the portion that exceeds 220 million equally. This is the 65 million spirit stones that should be paid to you. Please check it." Yun Chujiu scanned it with her spiritual sense and said with satisfaction, "The ghost city of Tao Tai is indeed trustworthy. If there's a chance, we will work together again." The steward said a few more polite words before turning around and leaving. Chu Feng felt that his worldview was about to explode. He felt that he had lived in vain before. Of course, the most profound feeling was that junior sister Yun was fucking inhuman. She squandered 60 million spirit stones and turned around to earn 65 million. Not only did she get a bunch of things for free, she even earned 5 million in the end. The most shocking thing was that this guy didn't do anything. He just said a few words and got 65 million. Wasn't it too easy to earn money? Maid number 9 was even more confused. Looking at Yun Chujiu who was eating and drinking, she thought to herself, isn't she afraid that after bidding 300 million, customer number 83 won't raise the price? Then wouldn't she have to spend 300 million spirit stones to buy the water-repellent bead? Although maid number 9 was very curious, she didn't dare to ask. She didn't expect Chu Feng to help her ask, "Junior sister, if in the end, even if those people ridiculed you, customer number 83 won't raise the price, what would you do? Do you really want to spend 300 million spirit stones to buy the water-repellent bead?" Chapter 4154, The Furious Island Master Chi Yun Chujiu took a bite of the pastry and drank a few mouthfuls of tea. Then, she said slowly, "It doesn't matter if he doesn't take the bait. At most, he can just buy it. It's not like he has much money." Chu Feng, maid number 9, is it really good for you to flaunt your wealth like this? Also, are you sure you're not acting pretentious? That's 300 million. It's not 30, and it's not 300. Yun Chujiu glanced at the two dumbfounded people and continued, "What kind of look is that? don't you know that you're willful when you're rich? Besides, what's the most valuable commodity in this world? Naturally, it's the most valuable thing. Even if I spent 300 million to buy that water-repellent bead, I still have a way to sell it at a higher price in the future, so this deal will definitely make a profit. Chu Fang and maid number 9 finally digested the meaning in Yun Chujia's words. Chu Fang scratched his head and asked, Junior sister, according to what you said, that number 83 didn't suffer any losses either? He Xinjiu laughed sinisterly. He is different from me. I will sell that water-repellent bead, but he will always keep it. Every time he sees that water-repellent bead, he will think of the more than 100 million spirit stones that he was cheated out of. It's so refreshing to think about it. The corners of Chu Fang and maid number 9's eyes twitched. They lit a candle for number 83 in their hearts. That person was really unlucky. He would probably live in the shadow of this incident for the rest of his life. At this moment, the room number 74 was dead silent. Island Master Chi picked up the teacup and wanted to take a sip of tea to calm himself down. However, when he saw the water in the teacup, he thought of the water-repellent bead. When he thought of the water-repellent bead, he remembered that he had been cheated by someone. The teacup in his hand instantly shattered into powder, and the tea spilled all over the ground. Although maid number 74 had received strict training, she still subconsciously retreated to a corner when she saw this scene. Could this customer number 83 be mad with anger? Master, why did you stop me just now? I want to see what this number 19 is. Xiao Yu said angrily. Island Master Chi glared at her fiercely. Do you still think that you haven't caused enough trouble? What is this place? How can you make trouble? Xiao Yu's eyes immediately turned red from being reprimanded. But, are we just going to let it go? That number 19 is clearly targeting us. If we let her go just like that, it would be too easy for her. Island Master Chi took a deep breath. This is the rule of the ghost city of Tao Tai. We don't ask for names, we don't ask for origins. Once we leave the ghost city of Tao Tai, everything will be written off. Don't mention this again. Although Xiao Yu was not convinced, she did not dare to say anything else. A strong killing intent flashed in Island Master Chi's eyes. His words were meant for that maid. After suffering such a huge loss, how could he let that number 19 off so easily? That number 19 had bought 3 pieces of 1,000-year-old black iron. With this clue, he would find out sooner or later. At this time, Feng Piapiao knocked on the small hammer a few times and said with a smile, Everyone, although the water-repellent bead is extremely precious, I believe that the next auction item will make everyone more interested. Hearing this, everyone's curiosity was immediately piqued. There was actually an auction item that was even more precious than the water-repellent bead? What was it? Yun Chujiu stretched her neck and looked at it curiously. Feng Piapiao took out an exquisite long box. After opening it, she took out a piece of bone. Chapter 41:55 Yun Chujiu, who was in a delicate mood. Feng Piapiao picked up the bone and showed it to everyone, then said, Everyone, Piapiao is holding a piece of the tail bone of a 9-tailed fox. It was obtained from our ghost city of Tao Tai. It is said that it was found in a mystic realm in a low-grade continent. The origin is not important. The key is that this is the real tail bone of a 9-tailed fox. If a customer who has a fox-type spiritual pet bid it back, there is a high chance of improving the quality of the spiritual pet. If he is lucky, it'll be even more amazing if he activates the ancient bloodline. Even if there's no fox-type spirit pet, if there's a customer who cultivates in charm techniques, it'll be very beneficial for his cultivation after buying it back. Anyway, the starting bid for the tail bone of a 9-tailed fox starts at 100 million upper-grade spirit stones. Let's start bidding now. As soon as Feng Piapiao finished speaking, someone started bidding. Many of them had fox-type spirit pets. When they thought about the possibility of their own spirit pet becoming a 9-tailed fox, they naturally spared no effort to bid for the tail bone of a 9-tailed fox. At this moment, in private room number 9, Yun Chujiu sat down on the ground. Chu Fang and maid number 9 were shocked. Chu Fang quickly helped her up. Junior sister, what's wrong? Are you trying to bid for the heavenly fox tailbone again? You don't have a fox-type spiritual pet. It's useless even if you buy it. Don't be rash. The corner of Yun Chujia's eyes twitched and she waved her hand. I'm not buying, I'm not buying. I was just too surprised just now. This fellow's heart was like a dog that was bickering. Wasn't the heavenly fox's tailbone in Feng Piapiao's hand the same one that she used to trick the three-eyed fire fox in the 9 Serenity Crypt in the Tian Yuan continent? The reason why Yun Chujio was so sure was simple. Xiao Hong was afraid of the tailbone of others, so she deliberately took a long time to bite a bite mark on it. Now, the bite mark was still there. Although Yun Chujio was a little puzzled as to why this tailbone would appear in Towering Sky Continent, she thought about how this piece of bone had not only been chewed by Xiao Hong for a long time, but also by the three-eyed fire fox for a long time. The idiots below were actually competing to buy it. She felt that her mood was very delicate. After all, she still had the skeleton and fur of the 9-tailed fox in her storage ring. If she sold it, wouldn't she be rich? However, she could only think about it. If she were to take it out, it would be too eye-catching. As she thought about it, her heart skipped a beat. Logically speaking, the higher the grade of the continent, the more good things there should be. However, she had obtained many good things in the previous lower continents, for example, the skeleton fur of the Xiao Hanio and the 9-tailed fox, the kitchen knife, the water-repellent bead, and so on. What was going on? A moment later, she slapped her thigh. How could she forget that the nightmare beast had once told her that there had been a great war between gods and demons in the last generation of the ancient era? It was estimated that these things had fallen into the lower continent at that time. In that case, she had hit the nail on the head. While this guy was distracted, the 9-tailed fox's tail bone was auctioned off at a price of 160 million yuan. After that, a few more items were auctioned off. Yun Chujio was not interested in them at all, and she started to fall asleep. Chu Fang and maid number 9 were dumbfounded. This was the first time they heard that someone could fall asleep in the ghost city of Tao Tai. What a weirdo. Just as Yun Chujio was falling asleep, Chu Fang tugged at her. Junior sister, it's time for the final item. Wake up. Yun Chujio opened her eyes and looked outside. She saw Feng Piapiao trying to create an atmosphere. Everyone, although the previous items were very precious, the next item is the grand finale of this ghost market of Tao Tai. I believe that this trip will be worth it. Chapter 4156, the final item. Feng Piapiao paused for a moment, then smiled flirtatiously. Why don't you all guess what the final item is? If you guess correctly, the guest will be given a small gift. When everyone heard that there would be a gift, they immediately scrambled to shout, it must be a high-grade medicinal pill, a medicinal pill even higher than the mysterious heaven pill. I guess it's a high-grade immortal artifact. Only this way can it be more precious than the water-repellent bead. Could it be some high-grade cultivation method? Or some ancient pill formula, talisman script? Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. If it was an ancient pill formula, talisman script, or something like that, she had to bid for it. The talisman script that the heavenly Tao Cliff had passed down to her was too high-grade. She could not learn it now. She had to think of a way to get a high-grade pill formula and talisman script. When the clamor of the crowd quieted down a little, Feng Piapiao smiled and said, I'm really sorry. None of your guesses are correct. Hearing this, the crowd became even more curious. They shouted at the top of their lungs, telling Feng Piapiao not to keep her in suspense and to quickly take out the final auction item. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost over, Feng Piapiao took out a very exquisite jade box and took out a black bead from it. Almost as soon as the bead was taken out, one of the customers exclaimed, this is the lost treasure of our Chaotian sect. Why is it here? The crowd instantly exploded. The loss of the treasure of Chaotian sect had caused a stir, and the suspicion was directed at Tower Master Luochen. How could the lost treasure appear in the ghost city of Tao Tai? Could it be that the thief who stole the bead had sold the bead to the auction house that organized the ghost city of Tao Tai? Feng Piao frowned. Sir, the rule of our ghost city of Tao Tai is not to ask about the origin of the auction item. Please abide by our rules here. In addition, this bead is definitely not a sect treasure of your Chaotian sect. Someone found it in a secret realm. Everyone, I believe that I don't need to say anything more. You all know the value of this bead. Although no one knows the effect of this bead yet, since the same bead can become the sect treasure of the Chaotian sect, it naturally has extraordinary value. The starting price of this bead is 200 million upper-grade spirit stones. Each increment must be no less than 10 million upper-grade spirit stones. The bidding begins now. After saying that, Feng Piao put the bead back into the jade box. There was a restriction on the jade box to prevent any accidents from happening. The wandering guest who had been shouting earlier had a determined look in his eyes. Although Feng Piao had repeatedly denied that this bead was not the one that the Chaotian sect had lost, no matter how he looked at it, he felt that it was the one that they had lost. He gritted his teeth and shouted, 210 million. At this moment, the maid in Private Room 1 shouted, Private Room 1, guest number 1 bids 300 million. Everyone was shocked. 90 million. It seemed that guest number 1 was determined to get the black pearl. Unexpectedly, someone started to raise the bid again. Private Room 74, guest number 83 bids 310 million. Room 10, Room 16 bids 320 million. Room 50, Room 35 bids 330 million. Yun Chujo narrowed her eyes as she listened to the rising bid. Most of the people who were bidding were from the 6 major sects, because ordinary people would not bid hundreds of millions of spirit stones at once. Moreover, they were all determined to get it. Of course, she was extremely sure that the black bead in Feng Piao's hand was not the one from Chaotian sect. The reason was very simple. The bead from Chaotian sect had been eaten by the glutton, the black bead. Chapter 4157 came out of the box. Yun Chujo felt that the Tao Tai ghost market really knew how to do business. The black pearl in Feng Piao's hand didn't need to be exaggerated at all. As long as it was the treasure of Chaotian sect, there was no need to be afraid of not being able to sell it at a high price. The 6 great sects were obviously determined to get this black pearl. In the blink of an eye, the price had soared to 500 million high-grade spirit stones, and it was still on the verge of soaring. The individual guest who first said that the bead was a treasure of the Chaotian sect obviously had no way to compete with Elder Duanmu and the others. When the price soared to 1 billion high-grade spirit stones, he had no choice but to withdraw from the bidding. The remaining few people continued to raise the price. Each time, the price increased from 10 million to 50 million. It seemed that the final price was going to be very shocking. Yun Chujo could not help but wonder, what was the use of this bead? Why were the people from the 6 great sects so persistent? As she thought about it, the corners of her mouth curled up. The bead from before had been swallowed by the black bead. What did this mean? If that bead was so valuable, then wouldn't the black bead in her dantian be even more valuable? However, this fellow's happiness only lasted for a moment. What the fuck was the use of being valuable? Wasn't she still a foodie who only knew how to devour her heavenly lightning? Just as this fellow was complaining, the bidding price had already soared to 2 billion upper-grade spirit stones. Elder Duanmu had also withdrawn from the bidding. There was no other reason than the addition of him, Elder Dongfang, and Elder Gu. He only had these spirit stones on him, so he couldn't afford it anymore. Yun Chujo felt that there was an 80 to 90% chance that the bead would eventually be auctioned off by the number 1 guest in Private Room number 1. This was because the maidservant who was in charge of helping him bid increased the price very quickly every time, so it was obvious that she didn't care about the price. As expected, when the first guest bid 3 billion, the rest of the people gave up. Feng Piao was so happy that she could not close her mouth. Although she had expected that the bead would be auctioned off at a good price, she did not expect it to be auctioned off at such a high price. She immediately raised the small hammer. 3 billion going once, 3 billion. Feng Piapiao's words came to an abrupt end because she had never dreamed that the bead would actually break out of the jade box and fly all over the place. Immediately, the situation lost control and everyone jumped up to catch the bead. Even though Feng Piapiao and those ghosts tried their best to stop it, everyone's eyes were already red. The bead flying in the sky was not an ordinary bead, but 3 billion. In the end, even the guests in the private room rushed out to catch the black bead. Occasionally, someone would catch the black bead, but before they could be happy, they would be overturned on the ground by others. The black bead would also take the opportunity to escape. Feng Piapiao was about to cry. Whether it was the jade box or the auction stage, there was an array formation. How could the damn bead escape? Now that the situation had completely gone out of control, what should they do? The manager who had made the deal with Yun Chujio earlier was also running around in circles anxiously. He had transferred all the ghost agents over. He did not care if he offended anyone. Every time he saw someone, he would be imprisoned. He could not just watch the 3 billion that was about to fly out of his mouth. In private room number 9, Chu Feng watched with his blood boiling. He felt that the admission fee was really not wasted. This scene was simply too fucking exciting. Maid number 9 looked anxious, but she could not help much. She could not help but feel lucky. Fortunately, the guests in her private room did not mess around. Otherwise, she would not have stopped them. Chapter 4158, We Are the Most Innocent. What maid number 9 did not know was that Yun Chujio was currently trying her best to suppress the black bead in her dantian. Yun Chujio felt that she was really too miserable. Previously, Guai Chao had seized control of her body and forcefully slapped the mysterious heavenly pill. Now, this damned black bead actually wanted to rush out. Even if she used her toes to think, once it appeared in the world, she would not be able to stop in the future. She guessed that the black bead was most likely trying to swallow the bead that was flying around outside. However, the problem was that if she were to casually go out and swallow the bead, everyone would not be blind. When that time came, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. It would be best if she swallowed the bead without anyone noticing. Now, the situation in the Taotai Ghost City was already under control. If the chaos was completely quelled, she would not be able to fish in troubled waters. She had to think of a way as soon as possible. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed. She picked up the pastry plate in her hand, stood up, and walked out. Maid number 9 was about to cry. She had thought that these two guests were very obedient just now. Why did this guest number 19 suddenly want to go out? Yun Chujio smiled and said to her, I won't go down and cause trouble. I'm just going to the railing to watch the show. If you're not at ease, come with me to take a look. Maid number 9 could only reluctantly agree when she heard that. She had no choice but to disagree. All the ghost guards had gone to the hall. If Yun Chujio were to barge in, she would not be able to stop her. However, when she saw the plate of pastries in Yun Chujio's hand, the corner of her eyes twitched. This person was really a foodie. Even at this time, he still did not forget to take the pastries. Therefore, Yun Chujio brought maid number 9 out of private room number 9, and Chu Feng naturally followed behind them. When they passed by private room number 10, Yun Chujio found that there was no one inside. She thought to herself, these 3 old men must have gone to join in the fun. How could this bead have such a great attraction? Yun Chujio quickly arrived at a railing. As she ate the pastries, she stretched her neck and looked down. The ghost guards of the ghost city of Tao Tai had already subdued many people. Some people saw that the situation was not good and had already returned to the private room. Yun Chujio frowned. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, there was no way to attack. Forget it. Although that bead looked rather extraordinary, it was not worth the risk. Just as Yun Chujio was about to give up, she did not expect that the beads suddenly shone brightly. Almost everyone subconsciously closed their eyes. Yun Chujio and the other 2 were no exception. They all closed their eyes because of the light. However, Yun Chujo felt that the pastry plate in her hand seemed to tremble. When she regained her sight, Yun Chujo looked at the pastry plate in her hand and her eyes flashed. Then, she picked up a piece of pastry and stuffed it into her stomach. After eating it, she said, "Damn, I was scared to death." Eat a piece of pastry to calm down. Chu Fang and maid number 9 looked at her speechlessly. Then, they heard a commotion coming from below. The bead is gone. The bead is gone. Tell me, did you hide it? You were the closest to the bead just now. Nonsense, I didn't touch that bead at all. You were here just now, so you must have taken it. Yun Chujia's lips slightly curled up, and then she said, "Now that the bead is gone, there will definitely be a commotion. Let's go back to the private room." Chu Fang said from the side, "Junior sister, you're right. We'd better go back quickly to avoid trouble. However, no matter how we investigate, it has nothing to do with us. We don't have any suspects. After all, we didn't go down." Yun Chujo smiled. Senior brother is right. We are the most innocent. Chapter 4159. For some reason, when Chu Fang heard Yun Chujia's last sentence, he felt a little strange. This feeling was exactly the same as when she had tricked Zhuang Hong and the 6 people from the Xuanwu sect. He shook his head. He must have been stimulated by this intense scene, so he was hallucinating. Even if junior sister Yun was a pervert, she did not go down this time. No matter what, the loss of the black bead had nothing to do with her, right? When the 3 of them passed by private room number 10 on their way back, they found that Elder Duanmu and the other 2 had already returned. Yun Chujo heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the 3 old men did not cause any trouble. Otherwise, she would have to worry about them. When the 3 of them returned to the private room, Yun Chujo crossed her legs and looked down leisurely through the window. This fellow was simply elated. TSK, the piece of pastry that she ate just now was not an ordinary pastry. It was a pastry worth 3 billion. No one would have thought that the bead would actually drill into the pastry and be swallowed by this fellow just like that. The moment the bead entered the stomach, it was swallowed by the black bead. Moreover, the bead did not resist at all. On the contrary, it was a little impatient. Yun Chujo felt that the bead was most likely an idiot. However, no matter what, after taking such a big advantage, this fellow felt very comfortable. This auction was really worth it. Forget about the mysterious heaven pill, the 3 pieces of 1,000-year-old black iron had solved her urgent problem. Not only did she not spend a single cent, she even earned 5 million. In the end, she even swallowed a 3 billion pearl for nothing. Today was really a good day. This fellow was really happy. The people of the ghost city of Tao Tai were going crazy with anger. The steward stepped onto the auction stage. He said in a deep voice, "Everyone, although I'm very unwilling to make the following decision, this is a very important matter. Don't blame me for being merciless. Men, control the people who were near the pearl just now and search them." The people who were near the pearl naturally didn't want to be searched. However, there were too many ghost hunters. No matter how unwilling they were, they could only let them search them. However, after a round of searching, they did not find any trace of the bead. It was as if it had disappeared into thin air. At this time, the individual who was the first to suspect the identity of the bead said, "This is exactly the same as when our Chaotian sect lost the treasure. Back then, when it was flourishing, the bead disappeared without a trace. This bead must have some strange abilities that we don't know about." The individual obviously didn't mind his identity being exposed. Anyway, everyone had guessed that he was a member of the Chaotian sect. The crowd discussed again, and all kinds of bizarre guesses were made. Hei Xinjiu couldn't help but burst out laughing. Chu Fang and maid number 9 looked at her in confusion. She said with a smile, "It's okay, it's okay. The guess of that person just now was too outrageous. I don't know if Tower Master Luo Chen is in this ghost city of Tao Tai. If he is, I think he is quite suspicious." Chu Fang asked in puzzlement, "Junior sister, why do you have such a guess? Isn't it simple? He was there when the bead disappeared twice, and the scene was exactly the same. If he didn't have a grudge, who would believe him? Yun Chujo curled her lips and said. Chu Fang was stunned and hesitated. What you said is reasonable, but Tower Master Luochen wouldn't do such a thing, right? Yun Chujo shrugged her shoulders. Who knows? I just said it casually. Hearing the conversation between Yun Chujo and Chu Fang, maid number 9's eyes flashed and she said, 2 guests, the tea is already cold. I'll get someone to send some new ones over. Also, send a new plate of pastries over. The pastries in your Tao Tai Ghost City are really delicious. Yun Chujo said with a smile. What a joke. How could 3 billion pastries not be delicious? Chapter 4160, Yun Chujo who almost choked to death. Maid number 9 agreed and left. Yun Chujo curled her lips. She did not believe that maid number 9 had gone to rush for tea. She must have gone to report the news. It seemed that Lan Luochen, that scum, had indeed come to the ghost city of Tao Tai. He had nothing better to do. It was really wonderful. Chu Fang looked at the sinister smile that flashed across Yun Chujia's face and could not help but shiver. Recalling the conversation between him and her just now, he finally understood why Yun Chujio was smiling. He felt that the little girl in front of him had a stomach full of bad ideas. She had actually tricked Tower Master Luochen without making a sound. He believed that even if Tower Master Luochen could explain clearly, he would have to waste a lot of time and effort. After a while, maid number 9 came in with hot tea and a plate of pastries. 2 guests, due to an accident, you cannot leave for the time being. In order to avoid everyone being bored, there will be an exciting dance performance next. Yun Chujio and Chu Fang did not say anything. This was the territory of the ghost city of Tao Tai, so they naturally had to listen to their arrangements. Very soon, there were dancers in gorgeous clothes performing on the auction stage. Unfortunately, everyone lost their initial interest, and because of the rules of the ghost city of Tao Tai, they could only anxiously wait for the crowd to disperse. Yun Chujio was carefree. Anyway, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't find anything on her. She just had to wait and watch the show. However, even if this was the territory of the ghost city of Tao Tai, they probably couldn't do anything to Lan Luochen. However, it wasn't bad to disgust him. At this moment, some of the leaders of the ghost city of Tao Tai gathered together. They were so angry that they were gnashing their teeth. How could this perfectly fine bead disappear into thin air? It was too strange. After they received the report from maid number 9, although they also suspected Tower Master Luochen, they didn't look for him. The number 1 guest in private room number 1 was Tower Master Luochen. They felt that since he had already bid 3 billion, there was no need to do anything unnecessary. Moreover, when the bead disappeared, he had already returned to the private room. Therefore, even if he really had a grudge, they didn't dare to rashly offend Tower Master Luochen without any evidence. What do we do now? The bead is gone, and we've lost a huge sum. I'm afraid we can't even recoup the cost. Yeah, we've been preparing for 5 years. Is it going to end so tragically? So what if it doesn't end? We've already auctioned off all the items that we can afford. The guests are already getting impatient. If we don't leave now, I'm afraid there will be trouble. The steward who had made a deal with Yun Chujio gritted his teeth and said, take out the other bead and give it to Tower Master Luochen. At least we can recoup some losses. Otherwise, our efforts this time will be in vain. Well, what should we say when the time comes? Previously, we said that there was only 1 bead. Now that we have another bead, wouldn't we be slapping ourselves in the face? Moreover, this bead was originally intended to be the final item for the next auction. Now that it's sold, what about the next auction? Another manager said. If this auction ends hastily, who will come again in the next auction? Just say that we found the missing bead. It wouldn't be a loss even if we sold 2 beads for 3 billion. The others felt that what he said made sense. This way, at least the reputation of the ghost city of Tao Tai would be preserved. Moreover, 2 beads sold for 3 billion was still acceptable. However, when they used their identity jade tokens to open the treasury, there was only an empty box inside. Where was the shadow of the bead? At the same time, in private room number 9, Hei Shinjo picked up a piece of pastry that maid number 9 had just delivered. Just as she put it to her mouth, the whole piece of pastry slipped into her throat, almost choking the guy to death. Chapter 4161, Pastries are too sweet. Hei Shinjo almost rolled her eyes. She picked up a cup of tea and gulped it down in a panic. Finally, she managed to get the piece of pastry down. As soon as she looked inside, she saw a bead rush out from the pastry and rush towards the black bead happily. Hei Shinjo, the first thought that flashed through her mind was, damn it, another 3 billion? The second thought was, damn it, that damn black bead, it swallowed 6 billion. It was even more expensive than De Hua. It was a scam. Then, a serious thought flashed through his mind, where did this bead come from? Did this bead like to be hidden in pastries? Just as Hei Shinjo was thinking about it, Chu Fang asked worriedly and speechlessly, Junior sister, are you all right? No one is fighting with you, why are you in such a hurry to eat? Are you choking now? Yun Chujo laughed dryly, I was a little fascinated by the dance below, that's why I choked. Chu Fang shook his head when he heard that. Although this junior sister Yun was black-hearted, she was sometimes very careless. It was really hard to explain. However, was this pastry really so delicious? Therefore, Chu Fang reached out his hand to take a piece of pastry to taste. When Yun Chujo saw that Chu Fang actually wanted to eat the pastry, she immediately protected the pastry plate and said with a vigilant look, Senior brother, what are you doing? Chu Fang looked at Hei Xinjia's protective look and couldn't help but laugh. Junior sister, it's already afternoon. I'm hungry too. Yun Chujo took out a meat bun from her storage ring and threw it to Chu Fang. She said shamelessly, this cake is too sweet for you guys. Chu Fang, he shook his head with a bitter smile and started to eat the bun. Hei Shinjo secretly heaved a sigh of relief. This fellow thought that there might be black beads in this plate of pastries. 3 billion. Heavens, how much money was this? When this fellow thought of the tens of billions in his hands trembled slightly. This fellow secretly pinched the remaining pastries on the plate. However, he realized that there were no black beads in it. Senior brother, if you really want one, then I'll give you one to taste. Chu Fang looked at the pastries that had been pinched flat in Yun Chujia's paws, and the corner of his eyes twitched. Junior sister, you should keep these for yourself. Maid number 9 could not help but laugh when she saw the interaction between the two. Of course, if she knew that Yun Chujo had swallowed 2 beads, she probably would not be able to laugh. On the other side, the stewards of the ghost city of Tao Tai were all furious. What the hell? What the hell? They had seen the shadow of the bead before, but this bead had disappeared from the treasure house. Investigate. Investigate thoroughly. At this moment, a subordinate came over to report, stewards, the guests in front are starting to make noise impatiently. If they don't disperse or come up with a way to stall for time, the situation will be out of control. The stewards were in a terrible situation. The 2 beads added together would be 6 billion. Even if they were to give a discount, it would still be 3 billion. How could it just disappear into thin air? The beads must be with one of the guests. However, even though this was the territory of the Tao Tai Ghost City, they didn't dare to search each and every one of them. After all, if they offended all the forces present, the Tao Tai Ghost City wouldn't need to open in the future. In the end, they could only grit their teeth and let Feng Piapiao announce the end of the auction. When Yun Chujo heard that the auction was over, she immediately left the 9th private room with Chu Fang with a smile on her face. Before she left, she even gave the 9th maid 5,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Chapter 4162, Hei Xinjia's probing Chu Fang's eyes widened in shock. Why was junior sister Yun so generous all of a sudden? How could he have known that compared to the 3 billion worth of pastries that maid number 9 had brought, 5,000 spirit stones was like a drop in the ocean? When everyone reached the first exit, they first handed in their number plates, and then after many twists and turns, they went to the second exit to hand in their black robes and masks. After a few more twists and turns, they finally reached the final exit. There were many ghost guards and a steward standing at each exit. Their eyes swept across the faces of the guests, and those with panicked eyes were taken to the side to be searched. Of course, this kind of thing was a piece of cake for Hei Shinjio, who was a drama queen. This guy walked out with swagger, and no one felt that this guy had the slightest bit of guilt. It was almost evening when the 5 of them returned to the inn. Considering that the Sand Sea of Death was not safe at night, the 5 of them decided to set off early the next morning. During dinner, Elder Duanmu and the other 2 looked solemn. Apparently, they were still thinking about the lost bead. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and asked curiously, "Elders, is that bead really that valuable? It's actually worth 3 billion. Elder Duanmu sighed, "The value of that pearl is not measured by spirit stones. If it weren't for the fact that the 3 of us don't have that many spirit stones on us, we wouldn't have let guest number 1 bid for it in the end. However, I didn't expect that the pearl actually disappeared out of thin air. It's really strange." Yun Chujo couldn't help but roll her eyes. She didn't get to the main point after talking for a long time. Instead, she wanted to talk about the use of that pearl. At this moment, Elder Duanmu continued, "As for the use of the bead, to tell you the truth, we are not too sure. You should have heard that Chao Tian's sect had such a bead, but it went missing after that. The successive sect masters of Chao Tian's sect had an oral decree that once the bead entered the human world, it would be a disaster. Therefore, we originally planned to buy it and seal it in the forbidden area. That way, it won't come out to wreak havoc on the common people." Hearing this, Yun Chujo chuckled and said, "Elder Duanmu, I don't quite agree with what you said. It's just a bead. How can it wreak havoc on the common people? Even if that bead has heaven-defying abilities, the one who will ultimately wreak havoc on the common people is still a human. The most sinister thing in the world is the human heart." Elder Duanmu and the others were stunned. Hei Shinjio had always acted like a heartless person in front of them. They were not used to hearing her talk so seriously out of the blue. After careful consideration, they found that her point of view had some merits, but they still did not agree with her. Elder Duanmu glared at her. "You are still young. What do you know? Since the Chao Tian sect has such an ancestral motto, it is definitely not groundless. Now, not only has the bead of the Chao Tian sect gone missing, but the same bead has also appeared. I keep feeling that a storm is coming." Hearing that, Elder Dongfang and Elder Gu looked more solemn. Elder Gu sighed and said, "It's a pity that we can't use the sound transmission talisman here. Otherwise, we'd better inform the sect master about this and ask him to be more cautious." Hearing that, a faint light flashed in Hei Xinjia's eyes. She asked with a smile, "Our nameless sword sect doesn't have that black bead. What's there to be cautious about?" Elder Gu choked and said dryly, "The 2 black beads have already entered the human realm. In order to prevent any changes in the towering sky continent, we naturally have to be more cautious." How shrewd Yun Chujo was. She instantly understood that the nameless sword sect had a black bead as well. Moreover, Elder Duanmu's words were somewhat exaggerated. It was probably not that simple. This fellow was the most tactful. Although he had guessed it in his heart, he said cooperatively on the surface, "Elder Gus' words make sense. Then we'll set off early tomorrow morning. When we leave the Death Sand Sea, we can send a voice transmission talisman to the sect leader." Seeing that Yun Chujo did not continue to ask, Elder Duanmu and the other 2 heaved a sigh of relief. This little girl was so scheming that she almost let it slip. After dinner, Yun Chujo returned to her room. This fellow curiously looked inside his dantian and saw that the foodie's black bead was not different. If one looked closely, they would feel that it was a little brighter than before. The guy cursed with his spiritual sense, "You foodie. Other than eating my lightning bolts, you are also eating my spiritual stones. You are such a freeloader. Those pearls that you swallowed are not your descendants, are they? Ha ha ha, so you are a pervert." The motionless black bead was obviously infuriated. It started rolling inside He Xinjia's dantian. He Xinjiu grimaced in pain. "Go Wei Ba, Xiao Jingjing, take care of it for me. If you guys don't listen to me, I'll cut open your stomach with a large kitchen knife right now and not your dantian." He Xinjiu originally thought that with such a threat, Guai Chao and the Great Void Mirror would help her take care of the black bead. Who would have thought that the two masters did not seem to hear her and just watched the show calmly. Please visit Pand 1, Co. He Xinjiu was both in pain and anger. She was someone who never suffered a loss, yet she was being bullied by these three scoundrels. This was intolerable. However, no matter how she thought about it, there was nothing she could do. She was afraid of harming the rats. She couldn't really destroy her dantian just to get rid of them, could she? This guy suddenly had a flash of inspiration. She was really stupid. There was not only one angle to solve the problem. Although she could not get rid of these three scammers for the time being, she could still blackmail them. Therefore, this guy endured the intense pain in his dantian and said through gritted teeth, "Glass ball, if you don't want to swallow other beads, you can just jump around as you please. I can even endure the pain of my meridians being broken, let alone your little torment." The black bead's jumping movements suddenly stopped. Yun Chujiu continued sneering. "And Go Wei Ba, don't think that just because you can control my body that you have something good to eat. Your brain is a good thing, but it's a pity that you don't have it. Therefore, even if you control my body, you won't achieve your goal. Xiao Jingjing, don't forget that you still have a piece of debris that you haven't found yet. If you like incomplete beauty, feel free to watch the show. I don't care anyway." He Xinjia's words clearly hit the sore spot of the three scammers. However, He Xinjiu clearly did not intend to let them go just like that. She said coldly again, "Don't forget that I'm your host now. If I can't recover, don't even think about it. You have been waiting for me as your host for a long time, haven't you? If anything happens to me, it will be difficult for you to find the next host. If you are good, I am good. If you are good, I will try my best to meet your requirements. After all, I am a very protective person. However, if you think that you can threaten me with means, humph, you still do not understand me. Even that old bastard Tian Dao cannot threaten me, let alone the three of you. At worst, we will fight to the death." After Yun Chujiu finished speaking, she did not speak anymore. She used her spiritual sense to look at the three scammers coldly. Guai Chao was the first to admit defeat. It formed a heart shape with its leaves and shook it at Yun Chujiu. The Great Void Mirror and the Black Bead were not as shameless as this guy. Although they did not say anything, they returned to their usual appearance. They each occupied a corner and did not move. Yun Chujiu snorted coldly and then withdrew her spiritual sense. At this moment, her forehead and body were covered in cold sweat. She could not help but clench her fists. Sooner or later, she would think of a way to get these three damn things out. When that time came, she would let them know the consequences of offending her. She took a shower and then lay on the bed to think about the matter of the bead. She could basically determine that not only did the Nameless Sword sect have the black bead, the other sects most likely had the black bead. Otherwise, during the auction, there wouldn't be so many people bidding for it. Moreover, the black bead must have a big secret. Back then, that piece of trash, Lan Luochen, had gone to Chao Tian's sect to put on a show just to get that bead. If it wasn't because of the important matter, he wouldn't have spent so much effort. What kind of secret was it? If these small beads were related to a big secret, then wouldn't the black bead and her dantian have a big secret? When her cheap grandfather gave her the black bead, he said that the bead was passed down from her ancestors. He didn't know the exact origin of the bead. Coincidentally, she was also a member of the Yun family, which was why she recognized her as her master. What was the origin of this black bead? Sometimes, Hei Xinjiu felt that her heart was big. There were 3 unknown species living in her dantian, yet she was still eating and sleeping soundly. She thought of the sunflower water that she hadn't come to yet. Fortunately, cultivators lived much longer than ordinary people. She could still shamelessly say that she was a little girl, or else she would cry herself to death. Please visit Pand 1. In the end, she comforted herself. As long as she kept her heart and walked forward step by step, all the problems would be solved one day. Early the next morning, Chu Fang knocked on the door. Junior sister Yun, wake up. We will set off after breakfast. Hei Xinjiu held back her anger and got up. After tidying up briefly, she followed Chu Fang to the first floor for breakfast. After breakfast and counting the money, the 5 of them left the King of Hell's residence and headed to the gate of the ghost city. There were many ghost guards and a few stewards gathered at the gate. They must have not given up on searching for the bead and wanted to see the flaws in the faces of the people who left the city. Hei Xinjiu naturally did not feel uncomfortable at all. She swaggered out of the city gate and turned her head to look at the stones that were used to build the city wall. She felt rather regretful. It would be great if she could take these stones with her. P-alpha-D-alpha knew most of the people who came to the ghost city of Tao Tai returned at this time, so many people came to greet Elder Duanmu and the others. A moment later, Island Master Qi brought more than 10 people out of the ghost city. His face was a little gloomy. Well, no matter who was cheated of more than 100 million spirit stones, their mood wouldn't be good. However, he didn't know that the person who cheated him was Hei Xinjiu, so he came over to say a few polite words and then took his people away. Before Xiaoyu left, she glared fiercely at Yun Chujiu, but Yun Chujiu did not say a word. This fellow was very shrewd. There were many people on the Flying Flower Island, so if they were to fight, they would not be able to gain any advantage, so it was better to endure it. Actually, Hei Xinjiu did not know that the person she had conned was Island Master Qi, but she felt that the person she had conned was either someone from the Flying Flower Island or the Ascension Island. This fellow would rather conned Island Master Qi. Elder Dongfang indicated for the few of them to set off later, in case Yun Chujiu and Xiaoyu from the Flying Flower Island had another conflict. Hei Xinjiu recalled that she had earned another 5 million from the good stuff, so she did not care about the sun above her head and hummed a little tune along the way. Chu Fang, who was sweating profusely, saw that not only did Yun Chujiu not break a sweat, but she even had the strength to hum a little tune. He sighed in his heart. A monster was indeed a monster. At this moment, Island Master Qi and the others suddenly returned with panic on their faces. The other people who had left the city earlier followed closely behind, their faces filled with terror. Run! Run! The sandstorm of death is coming. Quick, enter the city. Quickly enter the ghost city, or well be buried alive. Elder Duanmu and the other 2 turned pale with fright when they heard this. They didn't have time to say anything else. Elder Duanmu carried Yun Chujiu and Elder Gu carried Chu Fang as they ran desperately in the direction of the ghost city. Hei Xinjiu was stunned. It was the first time she saw Elder Duanmu and the others show such a terrified expression. Although she was very curious, she didn't dare to ask any more questions. Fortunately, they didn't walk too far. The guards of the ghost city had obviously heard the news and didn't stop them, allowing them to enter the ghost city. After they entered the ghost city, they heaved a sigh of relief. Some of them collapsed on the ground. Yun Chujiu then lowered her voice and asked Chu Fang, "Senior brother Chu, what is the sandstorm of death? Is it that scary? Please visit Pand 1. Chu Fang's face was slightly pale. The reason why the sandstorm of death got its name is because of the sandstorm of death. Although the sandstorm of death is essentially a sandstorm, the power of the sandstorm of death is extremely great. Not to mention humans, even the largest demonic beast would be violently swept up into the sky. This is nothing. The most terrifying thing is that the sandstorm of death is mixed with wind blades. No matter how high one's spiritual power is, they would not be able to save their lives. Yun Chujo nodded, however, she was still somewhat puzzled. Senior brother Chu, if the sandstorm of death is so terrifying, wouldn't there be no living creatures in the sandstorm of death? However, didn't we see some demonic beasts when we came here? Chu Feng smiled bitterly. You might not have noticed, but those demonic beasts are not too high level. This is because the sandstorm of death blows once every 100 years. Those demonic beasts were obtained from other deserts by the people of the ghost city of Tao Tai. Yun Chujo thought about it and realized that it was true. Those demonic beasts were all low-level demonic beasts. Chu Feng muttered to himself, it's just that there are still a few years before the 100 years. How could it be brought forward? Yun Chujo didn't pay attention to Chu Feng's muttering. She looked at the cultivators pouring into the city gates and thought that this ghost city shouldn't be affected by the sandstorm of death. Otherwise, these people wouldn't be in such a hurry to return. Thinking about it, it made sense. This ghost city had existed for God knows how many years. If there was nothing strange about it, it would have been buried by the desert long ago. Just as Yun Chujo was thinking about it, Elder Dongfang said, let's go back to the King of Hell's residence. This sandstorm of death will last for a few days. If we're late, we probably won't have any good rooms. The 5 of them arrived at the King of Hell's residence. As soon as they chose a room, Island Master Qi came over with his subordinates. Yun Chujo thought to herself, damn it, the road between enemies is narrow. Perhaps because they were in the same situation now, Island Master Qi was more polite to Elder Duanmu and the others than before. They even sat down and started chatting. According to common sense, this sandstorm of death will take at least 3 years. How could it be brought forward for no reason? Elder Jia of Flying Flower Island said with a frown. Chapter 4166, The Terrifying Sandstorm of Death, that's right. If we had known about the sandstorm of death, we wouldn't have come even if the gluttonous ghost city had some good stuff, Elder Dongfang said with a sigh. Island Master Qi's eyes flashed when he heard that. He felt a little comforted when he thought about how the Nameless Sword sect had failed to bid for the 1,000-year-old black iron because of his interference. Although he had spent more than 100 million spirit stones, he had at least gotten the water avoidance bead. It was better than the Nameless Sword sect not getting anything at all. The few of them started chatting with each other. The main topic was to guess why the death sandstorm was brought forward. In the end, they could not come up with a reason. In the end, they comforted each other, this death sandstorm will only last for 5 days at most. We can return when the time comes. That's true. Since the death sandstorm can't drag us into the ghost city, we can just stay here for a few more days. Yun Chujo thought to herself. Perhaps the happiest place would be the ghost city of Tao Tai. If these people stayed for a few more days, they would have a few more days of income. Moreover, they could also check the whereabouts of the bead. Of course, the last one could be ignored because the bead had already been swallowed by the black bead. No matter how the people of the ghost city of Tao Tai checked, they would not be able to find any results. While everyone was talking, the light in the room dimmed and a loud boom was heard. Everyone rushed out of the room and saw that the protective shield above the ghost city was already piled up with a thick layer of yellow sand. Moreover, the wind blades wrapped in the wild wind were constantly cutting through the protective shield of the ghost city. It was the first time that most people saw such a terrifying situation. Those huge wind blades seemed to be able to cut through the protective shield of the ghost city at any time. Island Master Qi and the others' faces were also somewhat pale. Admittedly, they were already top-notch mighty figures in the towering sky continent, but faced with such a natural disaster, it was the first time they felt their own weakness. Xiao Yu said with a trembling voice, Master, how are these protective barriers supported? If they are supported by spirit stones, it can't be that they will break because of the exhaustion of spirit stones, right? Upon hearing Xiao Yu's words, Island Master Qi and the others looked at each other. They had thought too optimistically before. This sandstorm of death was much more terrifying than they had imagined. Although their sects and the ghost city of Tao Tai had always stayed out of each other's way, now that they were all in the same boat, it was necessary to sit down and discuss. Thus, Island Master Chi asked someone to call a ghost messenger who was patrolling the streets to send a message to the manager of the ghost city of Tao Tai. A moment later, the ghost messenger received a reply. He bowed and said, "My lords, our managers should have come to invite you in person, but Tower Master Luo Chen and the other lords are also here, so please follow me to the city master's mansion in the ghost city." At this time, Island Master Chi and the others naturally wouldn't argue. They immediately followed the ghost messenger to the city master's mansion. Although it was called the City Lord's Mansion, it was actually the office of the ghost city of Tao Tai. The few auction houses behind the ghost city of Tao Tai would take turns to send people to be the city lord of the ghost city. However, other than the ghost city of Tao Tai, which only happened once every 5 years, the ghost city usually didn't have many people. Therefore, this city lord was just a title. This year, the city lord's turn was manager's son, who had previously traded with Yun Chuzhou. His mood was quite complicated now. On one hand, he was a little excited. Due to the advance of the sandstorm of death, the guests could stay for a few more days, and he could increase his income. At the same time, he could also check the whereabouts of the black bead. On the other hand, he saw that the sandstorm of death this time was more brutal than any of the previous records. He could not help but feel a little anxious, afraid that something would happen to the protective array of the ghost city. After all, even he did not know where the core of the protective array of the ghost city was, let alone maintaining it. Chapter 4167 Discussion. When Yun Chuzhou and the others arrived, there were already quite a number of people gathered in the city lord's residence's meeting hall. Yun Chuzhou saw Tower Master Luo Chen at first glance. It wasn't that she intentionally went to see him, but the moment she entered, Tower Master Luo Chen's gaze shot over. It was difficult for her not to notice. Xiao Yu saw Tower Master Luo Chen's burning gaze looking at Yun Chuzhou, and her heart was filled with bitterness and hatred. She simply wished she could throw Yun Chuzhou out of the city and be sliced into pieces by the wind blades. Yun Chuzhou deliberately ignored Tower Master Luo Chen's gaze and glanced at the others. Those seated were the elders of the other sects, and behind them stood the disciples of their respective sections. Manager's son said some polite words and let Island Master Chi and the others take their seats. After the servants served tea, Manager's son then said, "Everyone, this time, the Tao Tai Ghost City has experienced many twists and turns. Previously, there was the matter of losing the auction item, and now the sandstorm of death has arrived ahead of schedule. Although these are all unpredictable, our Tao Tai Ghost City should still apologize to everyone. I'm sorry." After Manager's son finished speaking, he stood up and bowed to everyone. Tower Master Luo Chen and the others quickly supported him and said some polite words. Hei Xinjiu, who was standing behind Elder Duanmu, thought to herself, this manager's son is really smart. After he said these words, no one would say anything wrong. After all, these are all unpredictable things, aren't they? Manager's son said a few more polite words sincerely, then, he got to the point. Everyone, to be honest, although our ghost city of Tao Tai has been in charge of the ghost city for many years, we always withdraw from the ghost city before the sandstorm of death arrives. This is the first time we are trapped in a ghost city. Moreover, we have searched for so many years, but we haven't found the core of the ghost city's formation. We also don't know what kind of formation this protective shield is made of. Hearing this, Tower Master Luo Chen and the others' expressions changed slightly. Did this mean that they could only resign themselves to fate? If the protective array's rune spirit stones were exhausted or something happened to the array core, wouldn't they be doomed? After a moment of silence, Elder Qi of Xuanji sect said, "We can't just sit here and wait for death. There should be many array masters in this ghost city. Why don't we immediately arrange for people to look for the array core?" Everyone expressed their agreement. If they found the array core, they would feel more at ease. Otherwise, it would really make them feel uneasy. Manager Sun nodded as well. Then, he said, Elder Qi is right. We will immediately start to do it. However, everyone must be mentally prepared. We, the Taotai Ghost City, have been searching for years without finding the array core. I'm afraid we won't be able to find it in a short period of time. Therefore, we should build a temporary protective array at the same time. Once the protective array of the Ghost City is broken, at least we will have a place to stay. Everyone, don't worry. The materials and spirit stones needed will all be provided by our Ghost City of Taotai. All you need to do is to send an array master. What do you all think? Yun Chuzhou thought to herself that the Ghost City of Taotai had made a good plan. If they could build another protective array, even if it was a temporary one, they would only make a profit. After all, no amount of money could buy a protective array that gathered the heads of the families. With this protective array, as long as they maintained it well in the future, they could use it for a long time. Moreover, Yun Chuzhou was sure that everyone present would agree. After all, they were all in the same boat now. Everyone wanted an extra layer of protection. After all, the death sandstorm outside was too scary. Sure enough, Tower Master Luo Chen and the others all agreed with Manager Sun's suggestion. They sent their elders and disciples who were good at arrays to help the Taotai Ghost City build a temporary protective array. Chapter 4168 Sitting in a row to wipe away tears in the blink of an eye. 3 days had passed, and the sandstorm of death did not show any signs of weakening. Another 3 days had passed, and the sandstorm of death was still raging ferociously. A shadow began to loom over everyone's hearts. According to common sense, the sandstorm of death would only last for 5 days, so how could it last for such a long time this time? Everyone comforted themselves. Perhaps it would end in another day or two. They would wait a little longer. However, until the 10th day, the sandstorm of death still did not stop. It was even more ferocious than before. What made everyone even more fearful was that the Ghost City's protective barrier began to tremble. Could it be that it was going to be broken? There were still no clues about the core of the Ghost City's protective barrier. The temporary protective barrier had been built, but everyone was not sure. After all, the power of the sandstorm of death was too strong. How long could the temporary protective barrier last? The people in the Ghost City were instantly anxious. Countless people regretted not participating in the Ghost City of Taotai. There were also countless people who regretted not returning the night before. Yun Chuzhou sat on the steps at the entrance of the inn. Looking at the thick yellow sand on the protective barrier and the huge wind blades that were constantly cutting the protective barrier, she was somewhat stunned. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, a mocking voice came from the side. Yun Chuzhou, you are really heartless. At this time, you still have the mood to be in a daze. Yun Chuzhou turned her head and saw Xiaoyu standing not far away from her with a disdainful expression. Yun Chuzhou ignored her and continued to look up at the sky. Seeing Yun Chuzhou ignoring her, Xiaoyu became even angrier. She walked a few steps closer to her and said fiercely, "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear me talking to you?" Yun Chuzhou looked at her speechlessly and said indifferently, "Miss Xiaoyu, Sister Xiaoyu, and Xiaoyu, now that our lives are at stake, do you still have the intention to compete with me? In the end, isn't it because of Tower Master Luochen that you hate me so much? If you like him, feel free to chase after him. Why are you always finding trouble with me for no reason? I don't like him. Moreover, even if you want to hate me, it should be because I hate you, right? If it wasn't for my courtyard being snatched away by Senior Uncle Master Zhuanghong, I would have been disfigured by you. I haven't even gotten even with you, and you still have the cheek to show off in front of me. If you want to fight, just wait until we become ghosts." Xiaoyu was rendered speechless by Yun Chuzhou's words and actually didn't know how to refute. That's right, why did she hate Yun Chuzhou? It seemed to be for Tower Master Luochen, but Yun Chuzhou didn't like Tower Master Luochen. Why did she hate her? Xiaoyu was momentarily trapped in a dead end by Yun Chuzhou, so she stood there in a daze. Yun Chujo couldn't be bothered with her and patted the seat beside her. It's tiring to stand and think. Sit down and think. Xiao Yu was also confused and actually sat on the steps beside Yun Chujo. Xiao Yu recalled that she had repeatedly tried to be friendly with Tower Master Luochen, but each time, she was mercilessly rejected. He was even willing to marry Yun Chujo, this trash, but he wasn't willing to marry her. Was she really that bad? The more Xiao Yu thought about it, the sadder she became, and her tears couldn't help but fall. Hei Xinjiu, who was beside her, was also wiping her tears. Of course, this fellow wasn't crying because he was sad, but because he was shaken by the sunlight. Although the sunlight was blocked by a lot of yellow sand, Yun Chujo had been looking at the sky for too long, so her eyes were still pierced with tears. Just as Yun Chujo was wiping her tears with a handkerchief, Chu Fang came out. He came out to call Yun Chujo to come in for dinner. When he saw her and Xiao Yu sitting in a row and wiping their tears, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Strange things happened every year, and this year there were especially many. Weren't the two of them like fire and water? Why were they sisters now? Could it be that Xiao Yu was tricked by junior sister Yun again? Chapter 4169, Where Are You Going? Chu Fang coughed lightly. Junior sister Yun, it's time for lunch. Xiao Yu suddenly came back to her senses and realized that she had actually sat beside Yun Chujo and cried for quite a while. She was immediately angered from embarrassment and was about to flare up when she saw Yun Chujo's eyes that were as red as a rabbit. She was wiping her tears with a handkerchief. Xiao Yu wanted to curse, but she choked and snorted coldly, Yun Chujo, even if you know your mistake now, even if you cry in front of me, I won't forgive you. Just you wait. After Xiao Yu said that, she turned around and left. Hey Xinjiu, is this little bitch crazy? She was only hurt by the sunlight. When did she cry? Chu Fang saw that Xiao Yu had already entered the house. He asked in a low voice, Junior sister Yun, are you tricking that Xiao Yu again? Don't make her suffer too much. After all, we are all trapped here. It's not good if we cause a ruckus. Hey Xinjiu, senior brother Chu, eat more lamb liver at noon. Hey Xinjiu said faintly. Chu Fang looked at her blankly. Lamb livers? Why? Yun Chujo looked at him sympathetically. Because your eyesight isn't very good. Chu Fang, Yun Chujo ignored the dumbfounded Chu Fang and went into the house to have lunch. Although she was trapped here, the King of Hell's residence still had sufficient reserves, so lunch was still quite sumptuous. During lunch, Yun Chujo helped Chu Fang pick up a few pieces of lamb liver, which made Elder Duanmu and the others look suspicious. What was wrong with this little girl again? After lunch, Yun Chujo went out of the house and continued to sit on the steps and look at the sky. Xiao Yu stood at the door and bit her lip, but she still walked to her side and snorted coldly, Yun Chujo, is there something wrong with your brain? Can you see flowers just by looking at them? Yun Chujo did not say a word and continued to look at the sky. Xiao Yu could not help but be angry. Just as she was about to say something, Yun Chujo stood up, went down the steps, and slowly walked towards the south. Xiao Yu took a few steps and chased after her. Where are you going? Yun Chujo finally turned her head and glanced at her. Miss Xiao Yu, we don't seem to be that close, right? Why do you care where I go? Stay away from me. Xiao Yu's face flushed red from being choked. She said angrily, Yun Chujo, don't flatter yourself. I don't care where you go. I'm just afraid that you'll cause trouble. It's already troublesome enough for us to be trapped here. You're also a troublemaker and a jinx, so I naturally have to keep an eye on you. Yun Chujo curled the corners of her lips. She bared her little white teeth at Xiao Yu. I'm a jinx? Then aren't you afraid that you'll be unlucky if you get too close to me? If you have the spare time, you might as well look for your sweetheart. Why do I feel that you're more interested in me than him? Could it be that you've fallen in love with me? Xiao Yu was so angry that her head was buzzing. She had never seen such a shameless person. A girl's skin was actually so thick. How shameless. By the time Xiao Yu regained her senses, Yun Chujiu had already walked far away. She stomped her feet and followed after her. Xiao Yu herself knew that based on her incompatible relationship with Yun Chujiu, she was a little abnormal today. She did not want to be like this either, but as she was trapped for longer and longer, everyone's faces were filled with worry. Staying in the King of Hell's residence made her feel like she was suffocating. Only Yun Chujiu, who was heartless, was still smiling cheekily. Although she would be angered to death by being by her side, it was still better than being suppressed by the atmosphere. Chapter 4170, Go chase after him. Xiao Yu caught up to Yun Chujiu with a few leaps and followed behind Yun Chujiu in silence. Yun Chujiu was speechless. What was wrong with this Xiao Yu? Why did she stick to her today? Was her charm already so great now? Even a woman could not help but fall in love with her. After a while, Xiao Yu could no longer hold it in. Yun Chujiu, this is the direction to the city gate. Don't tell me you want to leave the city to die. If I were to throw my life away, wouldn't that be in your favor? Could it be that you can't bear to see me die now? Don't tell me you're really in love with me. Yun Chujiu turned her head and said slyly. Xiao Yu was so angry that she staggered and pointed at Yun Chujiu while trembling. You're shameless. Yun Chujiu shrugged her shoulders indifferently. I'm shameless. What do you want? Although it's impossible for me to fall in love with you, it's not a crime to love someone. Just admit it. Xiao Yu was so angry that she nearly vomited blood. If this wasn't a ghost city, she would definitely pull out the sinking pulp sword and kill this shameless trash. After teasing Xiao Yu, Yun Chujiu continued to walk towards the city gate. Xiao Yu stomped her feet and followed after her. She wanted to see what Yun Chujiu wanted to do. A moment later, Yun Chujiu and Xiao Yu arrived near the city gate. The city gate was extremely important, so not only were there many ghost guards, there were also many cultivators who volunteered to help guard it. Although those people were somewhat surprised when they saw Yun Chujiu and Xiao Yu, no one said anything. Yun Chujiu climbed up the city wall along the steps of the city wall. Xiao Yu thought for a moment and followed after her. Xiao Yu saw the situation outside and could not help but reveal a terrified expression. This was 100 times more terrifying than what she saw in the city. As far as the eye could see, the overwhelming yellow sand and huge wind blades were like a ferocious beast constantly biting at the ghost city's protective barrier. The protective barrier constantly trembled as if it would break at any moment. Xiao Yu's face was deathly pale. At this moment, she no longer cared about how much she hated Yun Chujiu. She said with a trembling voice, Do you think this protective barrier will shatter? If the protective barrier were to shatter, would we not be able to survive? According to this trend, we can only hold on for 10 days at most. The temporary protective array that we built can only hold on for 2 days at most, so we only have 12 days left to live. Every day we live is 1 day less. Yun Chujiu said with a sigh. Xiao Yu was obviously frightened. She squatted on the ground and started sobbing. She had not lived enough. She did not want to die. People were like this. It was fine if they killed you with a knife, but someone forced you with a knife but did not kill you. It made you feel the shadow of death at any time. This kind of torture could simply make people collapse. Yun Chujiu looked at the crying Xiao Yu with a speechless expression. She used the tip of her foot to gently kick her. What's the use of crying? Can you cry the sandstorm of death to death? Don't you love that Lan Luochen the most? Why don't you use these last 12 days to chase after him? Give him some medicine or something. It's not a waste for you to chase after him for so many years. Xiao Yu's crying came to an abrupt end with a dumbfounded expression. It was obvious that she was shocked by Yun Chujiu's words. What are you looking at me for? Quickly go and drug him. Although that Lan Luochen is a scum, his looks are passable. You won't lose out even if you sleep with him. Yun Chujiu said slyly, like a wolf with a big tail. Xiao Yu's face flushed red and she stood up immediately. You are shameless. You are shameless. Chapter 4171, I hate you. Yun Chujo spread her hands. You are such an interesting person. I am doing this for your own good. You have already shouted and shouted at me for Lan Luchen's sake. Why are you cowardly now that things have come to this? Do you not have any medicine to return? I can refine it for you now. It will be cheaper for you. 10,000 spirit stones each. Are you buying it or not? Xiao Yu was so angry that she was twitching, but she knew that she could not win against Yun Chujo, so she simply did not speak anymore. Her gaze was dull as she looked at the raging yellow sand and gigantic wind blades outside. Yun Chujo saw that she had stopped, so she did not speak anymore. Her gaze was dim as she looked outside. Xiao Yu's heart was in a mess at this moment. She also felt that she was very strange. Seeing that she did not have many days left to live, she did not even have the thought of looking for Tower Master Luochen. In the face of life and death, it was as though these feelings and love had become unimportant. Compared to looking for Tower Master Luochen, she would rather be angered to death by staying by Yun Chuji's side. At the very least, this would allow her to temporarily forget the fear of death. She gave a bitter smile. Perhaps she did not like Tower Master Luochen that much. All she fought for was one breath. If she was in front of Tower Master Luochen and life, she would not hesitate to choose life. Sometimes, it was just so strange. Falling in love with someone and not falling in love with someone was just a matter of an instant. The man who was originally as dazzling as the stars, now that she thought about it, did not seem to have anything worth liking. How good could a man like Yun Chujo, who was a good-for-nothing, be? She had wasted a lot of time for him, giving up the reserve of a young girl for him, but in the end, what did she get in return? After a long while, Xiao Yu clenched her fist and said, Yun Chujo, the grudge between us shall be written off. I won't find trouble with you in the future. But I still hate you. Do you know how annoying your heartless look is? Yun Chujo glanced at her. What a coincidence. I also hate you. Do you know how annoying your self-righteous look is? Xiao Yu snorted coldly and did not speak. The best relationship between her and Yun Chujo was a stranger. Yun Chujo ignored her and walked around the city wall. Xiao Yu could not help but ask, what are you doing? Yun Chujo rolled her eyes. Digesting food. I ate a little too much for lunch. Xiao Yu, she should not have any illusions about this trash. She thought that this trash had some good idea, but it turned out that he was just taking a stroll. It was simply infuriating. Xiao Yu really wanted to throw her hands away and leave, but when she thought of the atmosphere in King of Hell's residence, she still followed behind Yun Chujo with a sullen face and circled around the city wall like a donkey pulling a mill. Only when the sky turned dark did Yun Chujo come down from the city wall and strolled leisurely towards the inn. Xiao Yu wanted to say something, but when she thought of Yun Chuji's eloquence, she gave up. The next day, Yun Chujo finished her breakfast and continued strolling slowly towards the city wall. Xiao Yu gritted her teeth and followed after her. In the end, Yun Chujo strolled around the city wall for another day. She did not even return to the inn for lunch. She only ate a few meat buns. Xiao Yu wanted to leave a few times but decided to stay. She felt that she was most likely sick and accompanied this trash around the city wall. When Chu Feng, who had not seen Yun Chujo for a day, came to look for her, he saw Yun Chujo strolling leisurely in front while Xiao Yu followed behind like a bullied wife. Chapter 4172 Why is she following you? Chu Feng scanned Yun Chujo and Xiao Yu a few times and felt that he was probably seeing things. Oh God! The world had really changed. Cats and mice could actually become friends. Fire and water could actually coexist peacefully. Xiao Yu saw Chu Feng's dull expression and immediately felt that she was utterly stupid. She actually followed Yun Chujo, this trash, to wander around the city wall for a day. She was simply sick. Xiao Yu was filled with depression, but she did not dare to rebuke Yun Chujo, so she shouted at the dull Chu Fang, "What are you looking at? If you continue looking, I'll dig out your eyeballs." Chu Fang, who did he offend? He was scolded for nothing. However, he thought that it was a critical period now, so he had to endure it, so he pretended not to hear it. He said to Yun Chujo, "Junior sister Yun, have you been wandering on the city walls all day? It's almost time for dinner, and it's already dark. Come back with me." Xiao Yu snorted coldly. A grown man is always so wishy-washy, coming to call people back for dinner whenever he has nothing to do. He's really free. Chu Fang, take a step back and be patient. Seeing Chu Fang's stiff face, Yun Chujo found it funny in her heart, but she didn't say anything. She just nodded and followed Chu Fang in the direction of the inn. Seeing this, Xiao Yu sped up and surpassed the two of them, walking towards the inn with a straight face. Chu Fang deliberately slowed down his pace, and Yun Chujo understood and slowed down her pace. When Xiao Yu had walked a distance away, only then did Chu Fang lower his voice and say, "Junior sister Yun, is this Xiao Yu sick? Why is she following you? Did you trick her again?" Yun Chujo speechlessly glanced at Chu Fang. "Senior brother Chu, don't always think that I'm so bad, okay? How can such a kind little girl like me trick people?" Chu Fang really wanted to shout at Yun Chujo, "Do you believe what you say?" However, he did not dare to. Yun Chujo continued, "As for why that idiot Xiao Yu followed me, the reason is very simple, she is afraid of death." Chu Fang was stunned, he did not quite understand the meaning behind Yun Chujo's words. Yun Chujo curled the corners of her lips. "The atmosphere in the ghost city is stifling. She followed me just to temporarily forget about the shadow of death. After all, being by the side of such an outstanding person like me naturally gives her a sense of security." The corner of Chu Fang's eyes twitched violently. He felt that this guy in front of him was getting more and more shameless. Yun Chujo restrained her smile, she said indifferently, her previous love for that scum Lan Luochen was not love. It was nothing more than the infatuation of a young girl. In the face of death, her silly little infatuation was naturally not worth mentioning. Since she doesn't like Lan Luochen, there's naturally no need for her to go against me. In addition, she doesn't know any familiar girls. As an enemy, I have become exceptionally lovable. Sometimes, the persistence that she had been brooding over would become exceptionally laughable in the face of life and death. Xiao Yu's change was because she felt the threat of death. If not for this incident, she would still fight to the death with Yun Chujo like before, seeking death for a person who did not love her at all and was not someone she truly loved. It had to be said that if she did not die this time, Xiao Yu could be considered to have profited. At least she had found herself again. Chu Fang, who was listening by the side, was confused. In the end, he concluded that Xiao Yu, that arrogant and domineering young miss, had been brainwashed by junior sister Yun. Chapter 4173, Why did you come with us? When Chu Fang and Yun Chujo returned to the inn, Xiao Yu had already washed her hands and sat at the dining table to eat. Due to the current tense situation, Elder Duanmu and the others didn't distinguish themselves from Island Master Qi. They temporarily put aside their past grudges and ate their meals together. After eating a little, Island Master Qi and the others put down their chopsticks. Clearly, they were not in the mood. Instead, they began to discuss the current situation. We haven't found the core of the protective array. The temporary protective array can only last for 2 days after the test. This sandstorm of death doesn't have any signs of stopping. Can we just sit and wait for death? Elder Jia of Flying Flower Island sighed and said. Everyone's expression turned solemn and they put down their chopsticks at the same time. Xiao Yu's action of picking up the food paused. This was the reason why she was willing to suffer by Yun Chujia's side. As long as she returned to the inn, she would hear them sigh, making her feel very depressed. She caught a glimpse of Yun Chujo and Chu Fang sitting at a separate table to eat after washing their hands. She hesitated for a moment before holding her rice bowl and sitting next to Yun Chujo. This trash had no other advantages. At least he would eat with her and would not say anything discouraging. Island Master Chi caught a glimpse of Xiao Yu's actions and could not help but be dumbfounded. Didn't this disciple of his hate Yun Chuzhou, that smelly girl, the most? What kind of madness had he gone through these past 2 days? Why was he still trying to push his luck? However, he was only stunned for a moment. At this moment, he naturally didn't have the mood to think about such trivial matters. He continued Elder Jia's words and said, "Yeah, I didn't expect that we would end up being trapped here, and it's very likely that we would lose our lives here. It's really..." Sigh. What he wanted to say was really ironic. Most of the people who came to participate in the ghost city of Tao Tai were people of high status, but they ended up dying here with a huge amount of money and treasures on them. Was there anything more ironic than this? Elder Duanmu and the others also sighed repeatedly. They were not array masters and could not be of much help. Even if their spirit energy was not low, once the protective array failed and they were enveloped by the sandstorm of death, they could only last for 15 minutes at most. It was deathly silent over here, but Yun Chuzhou and the other two were eating enthusiastically. Xiao Yu would snatch whichever dish Yun Chuzhou picked. Hei Xinjia's eyebrows immediately stood up. Xiao Yu usually bullied her, so she could ignore it. Yet, she was actually snatching food from her. Was she courting death? Hence, their chopsticks turned into treasured swords and they actually began to gesture on the table. The bitter Chu Fang silently guarded a plate of pickled vegetables that was close to him. He randomly ate a few mouthfuls of the spirit rice and cursed in his heart. If he had known earlier, he would have called for these two ancestors after finishing his meal. The next morning, after eating breakfast, Yun Chuzhou strolled out of the inn. This time, Xiao Yu did not even struggle with her thoughts as she followed. Chu Fang looked at the room full of people who were sighing and followed. Xiao Yu turned around and glared at him. "Why are you following me?" Chu Fang couldn't take it anymore. He said coldly, "Miss Xiao Yu, you might have made a mistake. Junior sister Yun and I are from the same sect, so you are the outsider. I should be the one asking you this question. Why do you always follow junior sister Yun? Is there no one else on your flying flower island?" Xiao Yu choked on Chu Fang's words. She had already been in a state of collapse these past few days, but after he said this, she felt even more pitiful. Her eyes immediately reddened as she covered her mouth and ran back to the inn. Chapter 4174. Chu Fang was somewhat embarrassed. Although this Xiao Yu was very annoying, as a man, bullying a girl didn't seem too good. Yun Chuzhou acted as if she didn't see this small interlude and continued to walk forward. Chu Fang felt uneasy for a while and threw this matter to the back of his mind. In the end, more than 10 days ago, this Xiao Yu was still his and junior sister Yun's enemy. Although they had temporarily reconciled, they weren't friends, were they? He eagerly went to Yun Chujia's side and asked, "Junior Marshal Sister Yun, you won't be strolling on the city wall today, right?" Once the protective array was broken through, that place would be the easiest to be attacked. Moreover, the temporary protective array couldn't extend to that place, so it was better not to go. Yun Chuzhou said indifferently, "Don't worry. Although this protective array has begun to tremble, it can still hold on for a few days." Chu Fang had yet to speak when he heard Xiao Yu's cold snort from behind him. A grown man is so timid. How embarrassing. If you are afraid, just don't follow. Chu Fang was dumbfounded. Wasn't she crying from his anger? Why did she follow again? Xiao Yu did not even look at Chu Fang as he took 2 quick steps to the front. From an outsider's perspective, it looked like Yun Chuzhou and Chu Fang were following her. Chu Fang curled his lips and lied to himself. However, as a man, he naturally would not bicker with a temperamental woman. She could say whatever she wanted to say. In the next few days, Yun Chuzhou and the other two spent the rest of their time on the city wall, except at night. Island Master Qi, Elder Duanmu, and the others were not in the mood to care about them and allowed them to do whatever they wanted. At this moment, the protective shield of the ghost city was trembling even more violently, as if it would be cut by the wind blades at any moment. The entire ghost city was immersed in fear. It was not that they had not thought of building a few more temporary protective arrays, but building such a huge protective array required a lot of materials. The materials provided by the ghost city of Tao Tai were only enough to build one protective array. On this day, Yun Chujiu and the other two had just come down from the city wall when they saw Tower Master Luochen. Tower Master Luochen didn't bring any attendants with him. His voice carried a trace of urgency. "Little Jiu, I have something to say to you." Even though Xiao Yu had already given up on Tower Master Luochen, she had been thinking about him for so long after all. Her eyes were red as she ran away. Yun Chujiu glanced at Tower Master Luochen. "I'm sorry, I'm not interested and I don't have time to listen. I still have to go back for dinner." Tower Master Luochen glanced at Chu Fang, and a huge pressure instantly enveloped Chu Fang. Chu Fang's face instantly turned pale. Yun Chujiu took a deep breath. "Okay, I can listen to what you have to say. Activate the isolation array. This way, senior brother Chu won't be afraid of hearing it." Tower Master Luochen immediately withdrew his pressure. He took out the isolation array plate and activated it. He said anxiously, "Little Jiu, this ghost city's protective array can't last much longer. Where is that Di Baiming who keeps saying that he's good to you? He's not worth your life. I'm different from him. Even if the protective array is destroyed, I'll do my best to protect you. I'll even sacrifice my life to send you away." Yun Chujiu curled her lips. "What are your conditions?" Tower Master Luochen looked hurt. "Little Jiu, what are you saying? It's already so late, and you still don't believe me? In my heart, you are more important than my life. Why would I make any conditions for you?" Chapter 4175, What if he dies? Yun Chujiu laughed sarcastically. "Alright, since you're so self-sacrificing, I'm naturally willing. Then I'll wait for the time when you risk your life to save me." Tower Master Luchen's expression froze. He never expected Yun Chujiu to react like this. Seeing that he didn't speak, Yun Chujiu continued, "You've finished your business. Can you remove the isolation array? I'm still in a hurry to go back for dinner." Tower Master Luochen tightened his hands in his sleeves and said with a dry voice, "Little Jiu, Di Baiming hasn't been able to accompany and protect you. Don't you have any complaints?" Yun Chujiu smiled faintly. "Haven't you heard that saying? If the two of us were to be together for a long time, we wouldn't be together day and night. Although we aren't together, our hearts are together. Besides, I'm not a child. I don't need to be accompanied and protected by others. I can handle it myself." Tower Master Luchen's eyes became gloomy. "What if he dies?" Yun Chujiu stopped smiling and said coldly, "If he dies, I will cut the person who killed him into pieces and make him regret living in this world." Tower Master Luochen was shocked by Yun Chujiu's killing intent, but he still asked, "What if everyone wants him to die?" Yun Chujiu's killing intent was even more intense. "Everyone? Then just kill them all. What's the point of living with a bunch of brainless people?" Tower Master Luochen was shocked by Yun Chujiu's even more intense killing intent and took a step back. He slowed down and asked again, "Then what? Will you die with him?" Yun Chujiu looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. "Why would I die so suddenly?" "To live well. To live well for him. To protect the people he wants to protect. To see all the sights and taste all the delicacies for him. No matter what, dying for another person is the stupidest thing to do. Even if you die, it won't change anything. It will also make other people who care about you sad." Tower Master Luochen had never expected to hear such an answer. He thought that since Yun Chujiu cared so much about Di Baiming, she would naturally follow him in life and death. However, she actually answered like this? Should he say that she was too rational or too heartless? Or should he say that she didn't love Di Baiming that much? Thinking of the last answer, Tower Master Luchen's eyes lit up. Little Joe, the protective array can only last for 2 days at most. You can move to my place. This way, I can ensure your safety. Yun Chujo couldn't be bothered with this self-talking psychopath. She said impatiently, I don't need anyone to protect me. Quickly remove the isolation array. I'm starving. Although Tower Master Luochen really wanted to speak more with Yun Chujo, seeing Yun Chujo's impatient face, he still removed the isolation array. Anyway, she would soon know that what he said was true. For her, he could give up his life. There was no one in this world who loved her more than him. Yun Chujo took a few steps forward, then turned to Lan Luochen and said, Lan Luochen, if you really care about me as much as you say, then please don't provoke me in the future and stay away from me. When Tower Master Luochen heard this, his originally bright eyes suddenly became gloomy. Why couldn't she see his good side? Little Nine, you can't escape. Even if I have to sell my soul and everything, I still want you. Chapter 4176, Gap. On the way back to the inn, Chu Feng didn't dare to ask anything, because he could feel that Yun Chujo was in a bad mood. He was puzzled. What did Tower Master Luochen say that made junior sister Yun so angry? Junior sister Yun had always been a big-hearted person, but now she was so unhappy. He must have said something extraordinary. To be honest, he didn't like Tower Master Luochen very much. Although the people of the northern continent said that he was good, he always felt that Tower Master Luochen had a gloomy aura that made people feel uneasy. After returning to the inn, he didn't see Xiao Yu. She probably hid in her room and cried. Yun Chujo wasn't in the mood to think too much. She hastily ate a few mouthfuls of dinner and returned to her room. The reason why she was in a bad mood wasn't because of Tower Master Luchen's pestering. After all, this scum was a psychopath, and she was already used to it. What made her faintly uneasy was Tower Master Luchen's words. What if everyone wants him dead? What did he mean? Yun Chujo recalled that Di Baiming had once told her that there was an even more terrifying force behind Lan Luochen. Could it be that their conspiracy was to make everyone become Di Baiming's enemy? In the end, he would bear the blame and become everyone's public enemy. No, she would never allow such a situation to happen. Lan Luochen had asked her a question, but there was one thing that she did not say. That was, she would not let her lover die before her. Even if she had to give it her all, she had to protect him. She would kill anyone who dared to touch her. She would kill without mercy. Yun Chujo wondered if this incident had anything to do with the 9 pavilions. After thinking for a while, she rejected the possibility. If it was premeditated, she should have done it earlier. After all, someone had already left the ghost city the night before. Besides, if it was premeditated, Lan Luochen did not need to put himself in danger. He was not a fool. Then, was this sandstorm a natural disaster and not a man-made one? However, no matter what, the most important thing now was to find the core of the ghost city. As long as she found the core, even if it couldn't be restored to its original state, she could at least repair it and hold on for a period of time. However, where was the core of the array? Previously, she had been sitting at the door looking at the sky and strolling along the city wall. Naturally, she wasn't idle. She was observing the subtle differences in the protective shield. The closer she was to the core of the array, the stronger the spiritual power was, and the protective shield was the strongest. In other words, the place that trembled the least was the place that got closer to the eye of the formation. After observing for the past few days, she had some clues, but she still needed to confirm it. Thinking of this, the fellow cursed the black bead. The black bead did not have any other abilities, so it should have some skill in the formation. The small beads that it had swallowed before could break out of the formation, so it was naturally not a problem for it. However, she was unlucky. She did not know if the black bead was dormant or dead, but no matter how she scolded it, it did not have any reaction. If the black bead was awake, with its help, she would not have to run around the city wall like a mill. The next morning, before Yun Chujo woke up, she heard a commotion outside. Oh no! The defensive array at the city gate has been broken. We may not have many days left to live. Let's not talk about this anymore. Everyone, quickly go and help to plug the gap, or else the gap will get bigger and bigger. We are all in the same boat now, hurry up and go. If the defensive array is broken, we won't be able to live anymore. Chapter 4177 was about to make a big deal. Yun Chujio frowned. A gap had already appeared in the protective array. It seemed that she had to hurry up and verify a few places that were suspected to be the core of the array. Just as she was thinking, someone knocked on the door. Xiao Yu's angry voice was heard. Yun Chujio, you are still sleeping. You are really magnanimous. Do you know that there is a hole in the city gate's protective array? Why aren't you following me to help? Yun Chujio pursed her lips. This Xiao Yu is like a dog's skin plaster. Was she sticking to her? She stretched lazily and said slowly, what's the rush? There are so many people anyway. It doesn't matter if I'm one of them. Outside, Xiao Yu was clearly angered by Yun Chujio's words. She said in a slightly exasperated tone, then you can sleep. It's better if you sleep to death. I'll go alone. Then, the sound of Xiao Yu stomping down the stairs could be heard from outside. Yun Chujio shrugged her shoulders and stretched her back before getting up. Yun Chujio randomly ate a few buns and then walked downstairs. She immediately saw the furious Xiao Yu. Beside her stood Chu Fong, who had a stiff expression. The corners of Yun Chujio's lips curled up. Miss Xiao Yu, didn't you go to the city gates to help? Why are you still here? Xiao Yu did not say a word. She had originally planned to go to the city gates to help, but when she saw Chu Fong sitting downstairs, she choked Chu Fong, resulting in the delay until now. Junior sister Yun, now that everyone has rushed to the city gates, let's go too. Chu Fong simply felt that Xiao Yu was unreasonable, but he did not want to make a big deal out of it, so he could only endure it. Now that Yun Chujio had come down, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. Yun Chujio shook her head. Our spirit energy is low, so let's not create trouble. Let's go and make a big matter. Xiao Yu sneered at the side. Big matter? What matter can be more important than blocking a gap? Could it be that you're going to look for the array core? Yun Chujio snapped her fingers. You're finally smart. That's right, let's go look for the array core of the Ghost City's protective array. Xiao Yu and Chu Fong were both shocked and exclaimed in a rare tacit understanding, look for the array core. One had to know that the Taotai Ghost City and those array masters were only 3 feet away from digging the entire Ghost City, yet they still couldn't find the array core. She said she was going to look for the array core. Did she think that the array core was that easy to find? Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered with them and walked around them out of the inn. Chu Fong and Xiao Yu quickly followed. Chu Fong asked suspiciously, Junior sister Yun, are you serious? Are you really going to look for the array core? Do you know where the array core is? Xiao Yu pursed her lips. She felt that Yun Chujio was most likely having a stroke. She was not an array master, so how could she find the array core? Yun Chujio said slowly, although I'm not 100% confident, I still have some confidence. Otherwise, do you think I have nothing better to do than to stroll on the city wall for so many days? Chu Fong and Xiao Yu stopped in their tracks. Could it be that she was not strolling on the city wall for nothing but to look for the array core? The two of them were still skeptical, but they did not say anything else. They followed behind Yun Chujio and made a few turns until they reached the Ghost City of Taotai. As the Ghost City of Taotai had already ended, there were only a few ghost guards patrolling here and it was not open. When the ghost guards on patrol saw Yun Chujio and the other two, they immediately came over to stop them. Yun Chujio smiled faintly at them. I'm here to look for the array core. Let us go in and have a look. Those ghost guards were stunned at first, then, she said, Miss, don't joke anymore. How can the array core be in the Ghost City of Taotai? If there's an array core here, the array masters who came here wouldn't be able to find it. You'd better go back. Chapter 4178 Boarded the pirate ship. Xiaoyu rolled her eyes and sneered, Yun Chujiu, did you hear that? You're simply daydreaming. If the array's core was inside the ghost city of Tao Tai, wouldn't the array masters coming and going here be able to notice it? You're just trying to slack off. Although Chu Feng didn't say anything, he clearly agreed with Xiaoyu's point of view. He felt that Yun Chujiu had most likely gone crazy again. Yun Chujiu was not angry and said to the ghost guards, there is already a gap in the city gate. Even if we can temporarily use manpower to block it, we won't be able to hold on for long. Once the protective array is broken, we can only wait for death. I'm just going in to check. If we succeed, we will all be saved. Even if we can't find it, there won't be any losses, right? If you're worried, you can send 2 people to follow us. Are you afraid that the 3 of us will cause any trouble? Although those ghost messengers hesitated, they still refused in the end. Miss, if you want to enter the ghost city of Tao Tai, please go to the city lord to get the token. Otherwise, we won't let you in. It's our duty, please forgive us. Yun Chujiu's eyes flashed. Alright, then we'll go to the city lord now. After saying that, Yun Chujiu left with Chu Feng and Xiaoyu. However, when they turned into a small alley, Yun Chujiu said to the 2 of them, if I go to the city lord, even if I get permission in the end, it will waste a lot of time, so we'll restrain those ghost guards later and force our way in. Xiaoyu and Chu Feng simply felt that Yun Chujiu was talking in her sleep. Force their way in. Putting aside whether this action was safe or not, the main thing was that the ghost messengers had 6 people. There were only 3 of them, so how could they restrain them? Moreover, once there was a slight disturbance, they would send a message to their other companions, and at that time, it would be even more impossible to succeed. Xiaoyu sneered, if you want to die, go by yourself. Don't drag me along. Yun Chujiu looked at her with a faint smile. Xiaoyu, it's up to you whether you want to go or not. In any case, I will drag you along with me in the end. You know my ability to lie through my teeth. Xiaoyu was so angry that she was about to explode. However, she heard Yun Chujiu say faintly, Xiaoyu, don't you want to be the hero that everyone praises? Don't you want that scum Lan Luochen to think that he has underestimated you? Don't you want Island Master Qi to be proud of you? Yun Chujiu's words clearly hit Xiaoyu's heart. She was silent for a moment before she gritted her teeth and asked, what are your chances of finding the array core? 80%. Yun Chujiu said with certainty. Xiaoyu stomped her feet. Alright, I'll listen to you this time. It's fine if you can find the array core, but if you can't, HMPH. Yun Chujiu said with a smile, since all of you have agreed, then let's discuss our countermeasures. Chu Feng, wasn't he a human? Why didn't he ask for his opinion? However, he was only thinking about it. He knew that since he was already on Yun Chujiu's boat, it was impossible for him to get off. A moment later, Xiaoyu gritted her teeth and left the alley, but she quickly pretended to be like a pear blossom in the rain. She cried while shouting, brothers, quickly help me. My junior sister and senior brother suddenly vomited blood and fell to the ground. Quickly help me see what's going on. The few patrolling ghost guards saw that Xiaoyu was crying miserably, and when they heard what she said, they did not suspect him and 2 people ran over. Miss, don't be anxious. Bring us over to take a look. Xiaoyu nodded while crying and then brought the 2 into the alley. Chapter 4179 to 80%. A moment later, the 2 ghost guards were knocked unconscious. Yun Chujiu was afraid that they would not faint completely, so she fed each of them a sleeping pill. Yun Chujiu dragged the 2 to the side and motioned Xiaoyu to continue fishing. After the 6 people were knocked unconscious, Yun Chujiu took off the identity jade token from their waists and covered the 6 people's bodies with sundries. She said to Xiaoyu, you are still useful. Continue to work hard. I have high hopes for you. Xiaoyu was furious. When had she ever done such a shameful thing? It was fine if she found the array's core, but if she couldn't find her, she would definitely find this Yun Chujo to settle the score. Yun Chujo waved her claws with a smile. Let's go. Let's go stir up trouble. Chu Feng and Xiao Yu did not have any confidence, but they had no choice. Since they had already started, they could only grit their teeth and follow. The three of them arrived at the entrance of the ghost city of Tao Tai. They used the jade token of the ghost messenger to open the door and sneakily walked in. The ghost city of Tao Tai was divided into two parts. One part was the auction house, and the other part was the backstage. Yun Chujo was not sure where the array core was, so she could only let out the little black rat and a group of rabbits to dig a hole. The little black rat and the few rabbits were not joking when they dug a hole. In a short while, the ghost city of Tao Tai was filled with holes of all sizes. Xiao Yu and Chu Feng were dumbfounded. Putting aside the weird-looking rabbits, you had turned the ghost city of Tao Tai into a mess. It would be great if you could find the array core, but if you couldn't find it, why wouldn't the ghost city of Tao Tai seek you out? Yun Chujo glanced at them. What are you still standing there for? I brought you here to watch the show. Dig for me. The two of them felt as though their hearts had gone crazy. They had never heard of any array master digging for the array core. Xiao Yu looked at the mess and gritted her teeth. Yun Chujo, tell me the truth. Are you really confident? Yun Chujo bared her little white teeth. I'm really not confident. I just feel that there might be an array I hear. Xiao Yu was furious. Didn't you say that you were 80% confident? Your comprehension ability is too poor. What I mean is 80%, which means it's possible, roughly. Yun Chujo said with a smile. Xiao Yu was so angry that her head was buzzing. Just as she was about to say something, footsteps came from outside. The three of them were stunned. This was bad. The first to rush in were the 6 ghost messengers who had been beaten black and blue. There were also quite a number of ghost messengers behind them. It's the 3 of them. As expected, they are here to cause trouble. How preposterous. One of the ghost messengers who had been beaten said while gnashing his teeth. The other ghost messengers were also furious when they saw the mess and were about to make a move. Yun Chujo shouted sternly, "Stop! If you don't want to die, just stay there obediently." Xiao Yu and Chu Feng were speechless. At this time, you still dare to threaten them? They were clearly the meat on the chopping block. Those ghost guards were stunned at first and then sneered, "Are you crazy? You still dare to threaten us now? Go, capture the 3 of them and send them to the city lord for punishment." Yun Chujo gritted her teeth. She had to stall for time now, because in another 2 hours, Xiao He and the others would be able to explore the entire ghost city of Tao Tai. No matter what, she could not give up halfway. It was not that she had never thought of going to the city lord openly, but who could believe her words? Even if she agreed in the end, it would waste a lot of time. Therefore, she had to take advantage of the time when everyone was going to the city gate to come and check. A moment later, the 2 ghost guards were knocked unconscious. Yun Chujo was afraid that they would not faint completely, so she fed each of them a sleeping pill. Yun Chujo dragged the 2 to the side and motioned Xiao Yu to continue fishing. After the 6 people were knocked unconscious, Yun Chujo took off the identity jade token from their waists and covered the 6 people's bodies with sundries. She said to Xiao Yu, "You are still useful. Continue to work hard. I have high hopes for you." Xiao Yu was furious. When had she ever done such a shameful thing? It was fine if she found the array's core, but if she couldn't find her, she would definitely find this Yun Chujo to settle the score. Yun Chujo waved her claws with a smile. Let's go. Let's go stir up trouble. Chu Feng and Xiao Yu did not have any confidence, but they had no choice. Since they had already started, they could only grit their teeth and follow. The 3 of them arrived at the entrance of the ghost city of Tao Tai. They used the jade token of the ghost messenger to open the door and sneakily walked in. The ghost city of Tao Tai was divided into two parts. One part was the auction house, and the other part was the backstage. Yun Chujo was not sure where the array core was, so she could only let out the little black rat and a group of rabbits to dig a hole. The little black rat and the few rabbits were not joking when they dug a hole. In a short while, the ghost city of Tao Tai was filled with holes of all sizes. Xiao Yu and Chu Fong were dumbfounded. Putting aside the weird-looking rabbits, you had turned the ghost city of Tao Tai into a mess. It would be great if you could find the array core, but if you couldn't find it, why wouldn't the ghost city of Tao Tai seek you out? Yun Chujo glanced at them. What are you still standing there for? I brought you here to watch the show. Dig for me. The two of them felt as though their hearts had gone crazy. They had never heard of any array master digging for the array core. Xiao Yu looked at the mess and gritted her teeth. Yun Chujo, tell me the truth. Are you really confident? Please visit Pand 1. Yun Chujo bared her little white teeth. I'm really not confident. I just feel that there might be an array I hear. Xiao Yu was furious. Didn't you say that you were 80% confident? Your comprehension ability is too poor. What I mean is 80%, which means it's possible, roughly. Yun Chujo said with a smile. Xiao Yu was so angry that her head was buzzing. Just as she was about to say something, footsteps came from outside. The three of them were stunned. This was bad. The first to rush in were the 6 ghost messengers who had been beaten black and blue. There were also quite a number of ghost messengers behind them. It's the 3 of them. As expected, they are here to cause trouble. How preposterous. One of the ghost messengers who had been beaten said while gnashing his teeth. The other ghost messengers were also furious when they saw the mess and were about to make a move. Yun Chujo shouted sternly, "Stop! If you don't want to die, just stay there obediently." Xiao Yu and Chu Fong were speechless. At this time, you still dare to threaten them? They were clearly the meat on the chopping block. P alpha D alpha nu. Yun Chujo gritted her teeth. She had to stall for time now, because in another 2 hours, Xiao He and the others would be able to explore the entire ghost city of Tao Tai. No matter what, she could not give up halfway. It was not that she had never thought of going to the city lord openly, but who could believe her words? Even if she agreed in the end, it would waste a lot of time. Therefore, she had to take advantage of the time when everyone was going to the city gate to come and check. Chapter 4180, the miserable Xiao Yun Chujia's eyes flashed, and in the next moment, the large kitchen knife in her hand was pressed on Xiao Yu's neck. Xiao Yu, Chu Fong, those ghosts. Yun Chujo exerted a little more force, and a wound appeared on Xiao Yu's fair neck, and fresh blood flowed down. Xiao Yu cursed in pain. Yun Chujo, are you crazy? Yun Chujo revealed an extremely sinister smile. Of course I'm not crazy. I brought you along just to make you a hostage. After all, you are Island Master Chi's beloved disciple. If anything happens to you, TSK, I believe it will be very fun. Chu Fong was dumbfounded. Was his brain not enough, or was junior sister Yun really crazy? Or was she acting? But there was no need to really cut Xiao Yu's neck to make it bleed, right? At first, those ghost messengers also thought that Yun Chujo was acting, but when they saw the wound on Xiao Yu's neck, they immediately did not dare to act rashly. The previous 6 ghost messengers did not know Xiao Yu, but some of the later ghost messengers had seen Xiao Yu. If Xiao Yu really had a mishap, with Island Master Chi's love for her, they would not be able to recover. There was a special array in the ghost city of Tao Tai that allowed ghost messengers to use their identity jade tokens to send messages, but there was no way to use talismans in the ghost city, so they could only send people to send messages. A small leader of ghost messengers was about to send someone to send a message when he heard Yun Chujo say sinisterly, "If you dare to send a message, I will kill her." The small leader hurriedly said, "If we don't deliver the message, don't act recklessly. If you hurt Miss Xiao Yu, you won't live either." Yun Chujo curled her lips. As long as you obediently cooperate with me, I will naturally not kill her. But if you dare to act rashly, we will perish together. In any case, this ghost city will break down sooner or later. Sooner or later, it doesn't matter. As Yun Chujo spoke, she cut Xiao Yu's neck again. Xiao Yu felt that she was completely stupid. These few days, she actually thought that Yun Chujo wasn't that annoying, but in the end? She was a temperamental devil. She was a lunatic. Chu Feng saw that the blood flowing from Xiao Yu's neck had dyed her collar red, and he couldn't help but feel a little unbearable. However, when he saw Yun Chujia's cold gaze, he didn't dare to speak. When the ghost errand's little leader saw this, he was afraid that Yun Chujo would really kill him, so he hurriedly said, well cooperate completely. What do you want us to do? Dig a hole. Dig a hole for me. If anyone is lazy, I'll kill her. Yun Chujo threw them a pile of pickaxes. Chu Fang's expression stiffened. It was over, this junior sister Yun of his was completely crazy. Also, did she run a grocery store? There were actually so many pickaxes. Those ghost guards were also dumbfounded, but they did not dare to disobey. Each of them picked up a pickaxe and began to dig a hole. Yun Chujo was holding Xiao Yu to supervise the workers, so Chu Feng could only bitterly act as an accomplice. Midway, Xiao Yu wanted to speak, but Yun Chujo said darkly, if you want to die, then speak. Otherwise, pretend to be mute. Xiao Yu felt this hatred in her heart, but she did not dare to resist, so she could only kill Yun Chujo a few hundred times in her heart. After digging for a while, a ghost took the opportunity to slip away to report the news. Although Yun Chujo saw it, she did not stop it, because even if she had Xiao Yu as a hostage, it was impossible for her to control all the ghost guards. In any case, she was almost done digging, so it was fine to deliver the letter. Chapter 4181, She was tearing down the ghost city of Tao Tai at this moment. Everyone had already piled up a lot of wood, sandbags, and other items at the city gate of the ghost city. Although they couldn't completely block the hole in the array formation, they could at least hold it off for a while. Just when everyone was slightly relieved, a ghost messenger ran over, rolling and crawling. City Lord, this is bad. The nameless sword sect's Yun Chujo is tearing down our ghost city of Tao Tai. The City Lord of Ghost City, Manager's son, couldn't believe his ears. What was this? He knew about Yun Chujo. Although the ghost city of Tao Tai had always claimed that they didn't know the identity of their guests, how could they really not know? Therefore, he knew that the person who had made the deal with him was Yun Chujo. He felt that this Yun Chujo was simply a shrewd person. But now, she was tearing down the ghost city of Tao Tai. Was she crazy? The other manager immediately became anxious and reprimanded, won't you stop her? She kidnapped Miss Xiao Yu from the Flying Flower Island, so we don't dare to stop her. She even ordered everyone to help her tear down the ghost city of Tao Tai. Now, many holes have been dug in the ghost city of Tao Tai. She said that she was looking for the protective array core of the ghost city, the messenger ghost said in a trembling voice. Island Master Chi of the Flying Flower Island was watching the show from the side. When he heard that Xiao Yu was being held hostage, he immediately became anxious. He said angrily to Elder Duanmu, what does your nameless sword sect mean? If anything happens to Xiao Yu, I won't let you off. Elder Duanmu and the other two looked at each other. They were also dumbfounded, okay? Didn't Yun Chujo and Xiao Yu turn their hostility into amicable friendship a few days ago? Why did this happen again? No one had the time to ask. Other than the people guarding the city gate, everyone else had arrived at the ghost city of Tao Tai. Manager's son and the others were so angry when they saw the large and small holes on the ground and the items lying around. Although the situation was urgent now, they had not given up completely. If the ghost city could be preserved, the ghost city of Tao Tai would naturally continue to operate. Now, it had been demolished. How could there not be anger? Island Master Chi was not concerned about these things. He was concerned about Xiao Yu, but when he saw the situation in front of him, he was stunned. Wasn't it said that Yun Chuzhou had kidnapped Xiao Yu? But why did he see Xiao Yu standing perfectly fine beside Yun Chuzhou? Although there were a few strips of cloth tied around her neck, she seemed to be fine. However, Elder Duanmu heaved a sigh of relief. He could just tear down the ghost city of Tao Tai and compensate her, but if he really held Xiao Yu hostage, Island Master Qi would probably not be kind to him. Manager Sun was so angry that he was trembling. He took a deep breath and said, "Miss Yun, what are you trying to do?" Yun Chuzhou said with a straight face, "I'm looking for the core of the ghost city's protective array." You won't feel sorry for the facilities of the ghost city of Tao Tai, right? After all, compared to everyone's lives, these worldly possessions are not worth mentioning. Manager Sun was so angry that he almost vomited blood. What she said was light, not worth mentioning. The ghost city of Tao Tai was the painstaking work of generations of them. However, under the watchful eyes of everyone, he could not deny it, so he could only say, "Miss Yun, if we can find the array core, this ghost city of Tao Tai is naturally nothing." But you are not an array master, so how did you know that there is an array core here? Let's get straight to the point. If you can't find the formation core, then you must compensate us in full for our losses. Otherwise, we will definitely seek justice from you. Yun Chuzhou smiled slightly. Of course. If you can't find the formation core, then our Nameless Sword Sect and Flying Flower Island will compensate you for the losses. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.